Thank you. Watching that video brings me back to the time 10 years ago when we moved to our neighborhood. At that time, I was a second-year MBA student at Wharton studying finance and learning about wonderful markets that allocated resources perfectly so that everybody's needs were met. And it was a shock moving to Strawberry Mansion and finding a community that had been so utterly abandoned by markets to meet its most basic needs: decent housing, healthy food. In our journeys to bring healthy food into our community, we stumbled across a farm auction in Lancaster County, which is the main farm county next to Philadelphia. And we were so excited. We went in, we got a number so that we could bid on food, and we actually ended up getting a pickup truck full of apples to bring back to our neighborhood. And as we did the math to figure out the cost, our jaws dropped. We had paid the equivalent of $5 a case for a 40-pound case of apples that we were paying wholesale $25 in Philadelphia. How is a family farm supposed to sustain itself when it doesn't have access to fair markets? Particularly if the farmers are trying to use environmentally responsible growing practices.
So you have these two markets, or these two communities that are really struggling because of the disappearance of fair markets. And we started to ponder, was there this opportunity to really connect the needs of these two communities in a way that could be mutually beneficial? And as Tatiana points out, on one side you have multi-generational, sustainable family farms that are disappearing at alarming rates, largely because of a lack of access to fair and transparent markets. And on the other side, just an hour and a half down the road in communities like Strawberry Mansion, you have people who are suffering from diet-related disease at astounding rates, really because good food just doesn't exist. And so, the fundamental vision for the Common Market was, how can we connect these two communities? How can we really create relationships through trade of good food in a way that brings back health and wealth to our region? And in pursuit of this vision, actually at that point, Tatiana and I had been running a community-based organization for about 4 years. And that the sort of constant pursuit of funding support was exhausting, perhaps even more so than the after-school programs we were running with kids. And we thought if we're going to pursue this vision for a scaled regional intervention, we wanted it to be sustaining, self-sustaining from its operations. And while we didn't want to replicate the market dynamics that had ultimately come to fail our communities, we recognized that we needed to operate at some degree of appropriate scale so that we could have the impact on the growers we were trying to have, as well as the impact on the communities that we needed to have. And so, we needed to find really that appropriate scale that would allow this vision to stand on its own. So we started thinking about, how do people in our communities get access to food? Where are they going for their food today? And it's been pretty well documented that many youth in neighborhoods like Strawberry Mansion get as much as 2/3 of their daily caloric intake from the schools. So we saw that the great opportunity was actually to connect the procurement power of community-based anchor institutions like schools, like hospitals, like colleges and universities, the very entities that were created to improve the quality of life for the communities that they serve. And but the bizarre thing was that for some reason these community-based institutions were serving some of the worst food that you could imagine.
And today, it's really nice to walk into some of the public urban schools that we work with and to see kids enjoying apples from local orchards. And they're not just apples to the kids. They're Granny Smiths or they're Stamen Winesaps. And everybody has a favorite variety. I talk a lot with the cafeteria managers, and they say that if they get apples from Washington State or New Zealand, the kids will take one bite and throw it in the trash. Because you've had these apples, they're bright red and shiny, and they look beautiful, but you bite into them and there's no flavor at all, and they're mushy. And to give you an idea of the impact that working with institutions can have, just last year in Philadelphia with the public schools, we were able to reach 14,000 kids working with 26 schools. multiplied that impact nationwide, and consider that the USDA is spending $12 billion a year on food on the school lunch program.
So one of the things that for us I think is really fun about sharing this video is updating people on some of the metrics. Tatiana spoke to some of the impact we're beginning to have. And while this video is only a couple years old, and we were really, really proud to share that accomplishment of $1 million in sales that year. It's kind of our Austin Powers moment, right? This year alone, we'll move almost $2.5 million of locally sourced, sustainably grown farm food, and that's after posting growth of over 50% in the last year. And it's also always fun to share our story, about our model for a community-driven, real market or systems reform. An idea that began as an inquiry into how we could solve some of the disease disparity that existed in our community, and how that's evolved into a regional social enterprise that is connecting communities between Washington, D.C. and New York at this point. And so while we're still relatively small, our vision for change is grand. We see the potential in redirecting the procurement dollars of community anchor institutions to support viable, sustainable, transparent, and fair regional food systems. And while our work is really focused on democratizing access to good food, we're also trying to create new opportunities for farmers who grow food in an ecologically responsible manner. It's a tall order. We're also working to reform markets and trying to ensure that the markets no longer extract value from communities, but really that markets work to build and restore health and well-being in urban and rural communities. With that, we're really thankful to you all for listening and sharing in our story and in our work. So thank you.